Reactive Training Systems.
Hey everyone, I wanted to do an introduction to this podcast because we kind of just get started really quickly. And I wanted to talk with Luke Richardson a few days after he won the IPF World Championships in the 120 plus junior category in 2018 after losing to Pavlo, a Ukrainian lifter, last year. And the reason is because a lot has changed since then. His mindset, his attitude towards training has been totally revamped. And there's a lot to learn, I think, from high-level lifters, even from a coach's perspective. Even though I'm writing his programming, even though we work with these lifters, there's a lot that you don't always get to communicate with over email or Messenger or Instagram. However, whatever medium is being used, that you really just have to get in person. You have to talk with them, sit down, ask them questions, and figure out some of the more fine-tuning details that enable them to become the best lifter that they can be. So this conversation is about 25, 30 minutes. It's a shorter podcast. It's more of a question and answer style. I hope you enjoy it. Hope you learn something. If you don't, okay. If you do, thumbs up, subscribe, share with your friends, and we'll get right into it. I don't want to talk about just a little bit about your performance.
Yeah.
You guys aren't aware, it's Luke Richardson, and we've been working together for, it's been like a year and like 5 months.
It was about March time last year. Yeah, about just over a year and around there.
yeah. So like we've been working together a while, and you're pretty damn strong when we first started. I mean, what, you won Euros?
Yeah. With 835 kilo total.
And why did you decide from getting to that level that you even wanted to hire a coach? I mean, you already accomplished a lot at that age.
My first two comps, like the prep for those went really well. Like my prep for British was genuinely like flawless, but it was almost like it wasn't reliable enough. Like I was just running like some linear program off the internet that was kind of just like, it was a bit hit and miss. And then for Euros, like my prep didn't go very well at all. Like, because obviously I wasn't making like the level of progress that I was making before. So I wasn't really keeping up with the trend. So I just ended up like feeling really like injured and like all that stuff. And then I actually went to Euros, like didn't really have a performance that I was that happy with. And then spoke to Mark McQueen and he said, like basically, name one good lifter who doesn't have a coach. So yeah, and then I messaged my boy. Here we are. It was like,
yeah, that's a pretty cool thing though, about coaching, because at first it seems like, especially if you're kind of all about just being your own person, and powerlifting's already a pretty unique thing to get into. It's like you get into it and there's a lot of free information, a lot of things you can do on your own. And like when I started lifting, I was like, I don't need a coach, because I love to kind of experiment with the best things, the best methods, and try 800 programs out.
Yeah.
Until I found something that worked. But at some point I was like, I think I need a coach, because I don't have the objectivity for myself, at least at that time, to really just stick to the plan and have that discipline. Did you ever have that problem? Like discipline issues?
Not really. It's not something I really ever had a problem with. I think just because of how I am, like, and the way I am with things, like I'm quite, like I get really involved in stuff and like I'm really obsessed with things. So like I'd be like down to the point, not so much as I am now, because obviously, working with you and like obviously I'm a lot stronger, so there's a lot of other like variables that go into it, like recovery and stuff like that. But I think, I was probably the same, just not as like this needs to be done like this today, and like that's because this is going to lead to that. Like I didn't really like ask why or like understand what was going on. I just kind of did it. Whereas now I feel like I can kind of be better in other areas, because I know that I kind of know the reasoning behind things. So I can like time things, like this prep I've been timing like my hot and cold treatments to like line up with the program and stuff like that. So just didn't execute as professionally as maybe I used to, but I've always been pretty like, this needs to be done and needs to be done like this. But
yeah, I mean, and you track a lot of your data on the RTS website, and it's really cool looking back at your progress and just seeing like how beneficial it has been to log like everything. I mean, you pretty much log everything you can. What do you think the biggest change was from last Worlds? Because you did pretty well last Worlds, and then you know, we signed. We were working together, and it's like the goal was win. Let's win. Yeah. And then we had a pretty good idea of what the outcome was going to be, but you know, obviously, if you guys saw last Worlds, it didn't turn out how we planned.
No.
So how was that experience for you?
What, last year's Worlds in itself?
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a bit of like it was a bit of a weird experience because it was like, well, it was still undoubtedly the best performance of my life, like bar none. Like it was so like better executed than I've like ever executed before. Like obviously all the weights were heavier, like the PBs were massive, but obviously we went with the goal to come first. So it was kind of bad. Like I dropped my last deadlift like 350 kilos, which was like for the win at the time. And I don't know, although it was, I think if I hadn't have dropped that and I'd still come second, I wouldn't have been as bitter. But I think just because like I missed that lift, it like put quite like a bitter taste in my mouth, which is probably what's changed to this year, is just the fact that like I think my purpose has kind of changed. Like my reason to be good at powerlifting has changed. Like last year, I genuinely think last year if I'd won, I'd have just quit. Like that's it. Whereas now I've got other kind of aspirations and things I want to do, and I want to be more than just kind of like a one-time world champion. Like,
yeah. Well, so why? So then that was pretty hard, obviously, kind of getting to that moment, and you dropped it. Turns out there's actually a benefit from losing, a benefit from experiencing.
That was the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah,
definitely.
So like the pain period, right? Mm-hmm. Have you ever had anything like that kind of happen to you in the past, at least with any of the other endeavors you had?
No, not like that.
Yeah.
No.
So like what it triggered something in you, and
yeah, definitely. It was I don't know, it's just made me think about things in a whole kind of different way. Not like it's like me against the world, but just like, do you know what, like I did this and I don't know, it's almost like this year I've kind of matured more mentally as well, I think, and as well kind of realised almost like, I know obviously I kind of just like realised my own potential, if that makes sense. Like last year, like I didn't, at Worlds, you know, I totaled 865, like if I pulled that deadlift I'd have done 877.5, which, you know, to me now, like obviously I did 960 on Tuesday, but yeah, it's just kind of like, I can't remember where I was going with it now, but you know, it's just, my outlook on things has changed a lot, and I think I'm kind of just getting better for me now. Like I'm not getting better to win a certain competition or a certain title or a certain world record or anything like that. I'm just here to like be genuinely the best I can be.
Yeah.
And like regardless of like what that means, like being the best that I can be this year round meant that I won the world championship and I broke the world record total, but like that's just part of me getting better. Like
yeah, because we had we even had other plans like in the competition, and when we were in the warm-up room, I thought it was really cool how, I don't know if pragmatic is the right word, but you had a good outlook. Like my priority, from what I could tell, let's win this thing.
Yeah.
And there were certain variables that kind of popped up in there, and you know, it's like, this is what I have today. So you had this goal coming into it, but then you were also willing to adapt that how you got there.
Yeah.
Because the totals were projected a bit higher, but the variables kind of popped in. And I thought it was really cool that you're like, yeah, I mean, if we don't go 385 in the squat, it's cool. 380 is good. We need to make sure we get, you know, build the total, and the risk involved with pushing to what we wanted might not have been there.
Yeah. Well, you know, as I see it, it's kind of like, well, I know obviously, you know, every time that you step on a platform, like it kind of could be your last, but that's the same with anything, isn't it? But it's kind of just like, well, 385 doesn't have to be there today. Like the next comp I do, I'll probably squat 400, but I'll probably be capable of doing more. Like to me, it's kind of like 385 isn't the ultimate of like whether my performance was good or bad. Like I've come to be world champion. Like, and there's only like you can be world champion squatting 385 or 380. Like it doesn't matter. So to me, it's kind of like, well, you do what you need to do to like kind of get the job done on the day, because there'll always be another opportunity to lift more than what you've lifted, and for other people to lift more than what you've lifted as well. But like no one can ever take away like that title from you. Like
in that moment,
yeah,
right? Like,
exactly. Yeah.
That was really really cool, and we were talking a little bit too in Calgary Barbell. By the way, if you guys haven't been, it's a really cool gym in Calgary, and we were talking about kind of the biggest things that have changed in your programming, like what you think the biggest programming changes have been, and how you've approached training itself from last Worlds. I want to talk about that just a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I think my outlook on training and stuff like that definitely has changed. I think, I don't know, there was something, it was just kind of something about me leading up to last Worlds. It was just, like, you know, if there was certain things I didn't like, or like I wasn't feeling as recovered, and like I was, do you know what I mean? Like, everyone feels like that at some point. Like, it's training, like, and you're working your body like really hard. It's not gonna feel nice sometimes. You know what I mean? But like, it was almost like I was a bit of a princess. Like, almost like, oh, like doing like these squats like the day after I squatted on Monday, like is like it's a bit too much. Like, I won't do it.
Yeah.
Like, because like I don't like. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's just kind of like, which seems like so ridiculous when I think back on it now, because it's literally like in the moment where like I didn't win the comp, like I'd have done anything to win it, but then your preparation is where it matters. So I think that's kind of the outlook I've changed, like taken on this time, especially with my training, is kind of like preparation is just everything. Like, if you do everything you can possibly do, I know I said before the comp, like, yeah, I'm gonna win it, and I've said it, I've put it out there, because to me, if you put yourself in that position where genuinely the only thing that can happen, the only result that can happen is you winning, because if you can't do anything more, like, and I can genuinely say that before this comp, and you know, I think it showed, and I think it's just going to be something that I keep building on, like until I don't do it anymore. Like, that's it. Just definitely taking things a bit more seriously, and just doing everything the best way I can possibly do it. Like, not just getting it done, like getting it done right, and yeah, just executing in training and literally getting everything on that sheet done, and then even more.
Yeah, and I thought it was really cool too. We had some GPP work done, programmed, and most people, when they have GPP, it's 10 minutes of rows, some pull-ups, some core. But you didn't just throw that in there. It was like, this is in my program, I'm doing it, and you know, it's going to be done right. I actually thought this was a really interesting aspect of your training, because we kind of kept it in there after doing some hypertrophy blocks, some higher volume, just back work. Did you find that to be something that was helpful to you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I know we were talking about it, Calgary Barbell. I think that kind of putting my own spin on the rows. Like, I think the problem is when people maybe see like GPP and accessory work, like they think, oh, like it's an accessory, or it's GPP. Like again, they probably think like as I would have thought a year ago, like in the grand scheme of things, like, does this really matter? Like, oh, like squat, bench, deadlift, like that's what counts, and then all the other stuff, like,
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I'll do it, but like it doesn't really matter. Whereas, you know, I'd say that kind of for my deadlift, this prep, like my positioning and stuff like that, obviously there's other things that contribute to it, like all the pause work and just the sheer amount of deadlift work that I've been doing. But, you know, I've been hitting 15 minutes, like maximum barbell rows twice a week, like every week until, whoa,
the thunder.
yeah, like every week until I started my peak. Really, I dropped it out then, but yeah, like, so it says max rows, and you know, you can kind of interpret that however you want to. So I thought, well, I'm gonna do some barbell rows, and then kind of structured it in a way where it got heavier over the coming weeks, to the point where, you know, it became kind of less GPP like and more like, I'd literally work it up to like heavy sets of 5, like for maximum in 15 minutes, and then drop it right back again, and then build up again, but just build up a little bit higher, because obviously my back's got a bit stronger.
So how especially was that? So you start with sets of 20 and then add weight until you couldn't do sets of 20 and go to 15? Or?
No, every week I added 5 kilos, and just, well, every time I did it, I added 5 kilos. So I was doing it twice a week. So I do it once on Tuesday and then once on Friday, after my Tuesday and Friday session. So I just had 5 kilos each time that I did it, and then obviously as kind of that trend continued, the reps naturally decreased and volume decreased a little bit. But I think that like it's done wonders for my back. Like my upper back has come on so much this prep, and I think that's kind of what's contributed to, again, the kind of big progress that I made with my deadlift, just through sheer positioning improvements. You know what I mean? Just from having a stronger upper back. Like, I wouldn't say my upper body's something that's kind of always lagged, but I haven't really been someone who has lifted very efficiently, I think, until this prep, especially with all the core work and stuff as well. Like, I'd say that, like, especially, like, obviously my technique on bench has pretty much always stayed the same because they don't really play into that factor, but especially my squat and deadlift, like, stability and just complete, like, efficiency has just come on leaps and bounds since my last competition. Like, just like, it's not like I've tried to, it's just that I've been doing all these other things and now I can do it properly because of that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's we talk a little bit about, in terms of nutrition, there's the hierarchy of the things that matter, like the baseline, the calories and the protein, and then you get all the way up to the supplements and the meal timing. Similar to training, it's like, the 80% is what you should focus on, but as you get more and more competitive, the smaller things that if you're not normally paying attention to them, those smaller things, someone else might be doing them. Yeah. Not necessarily that you have to throw the kitchen sink into training, but you still have to focus on those smaller things because they do add up over time, especially with your consistency with everything, you know. And so obviously there's some confirmation bias in my end, but like, it is really cool because I didn't know all of this necessarily, like how particular you were with everything about training, you know. It sounds like that's kind of something you've done with everything that you do, though. Like, you're pretty meticulous, or is that just something with training?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, you did obviously pretty dang well at this Worlds. What do you have coming up?
What, like my next few competitions and stuff like that? I've got the British Junior Championships in October. Yeah, start of October, I believe, and then Europeans in December, and that's like the start of December. So there's not going to be much in between them two, but you know, I've got some big plans for them comps, and obviously, you know, I want to keep kind of this trend up of just doing really well for myself. Obviously, there's some milestones I want to tick off, but again, I don't think that kind of chasing them numbers is a good thing, but I do think it's a good thing because I think that I'll exceed them. And then, like, because I want to total 1,000 kilos because I'll be the youngest person to do it, like, and in sleeves. Like, I think Eric Lillibridge did it at 22 in wraps. So if I can do it at 21 in sleeves in the IPF, that'll be pretty cool.
Quite the milestone.
Yeah, that'll be pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and so Worlds is next year in Sweden. I just, you know, really enjoy kind of talking and learning about. I know I'm coaching you, but there's also these small details that, you know, mentally, like what you're thinking about, how you're thinking about going into the gym every day. I mean, also talk a little about the environment you train in, because it seems like you got a pretty good squad.
Yeah, the squad is strong, yeah. It's kind of just been set up in a way that it is just completely ideal, not only for myself, but for everyone else as well. You know, I'm opening a gym back in the UK with, well, he's like my life coach. Like, he's an older lad. He won't mind me saying he's about 50 years old. He's called Richard, and kind of has just seen something in me that no one's really seen in me before, and has kind of been like, right, well, if we can do this so that your training's on point and you can go this far, which I think is, like I say, going back to what's the difference between last Worlds and this Worlds, again, like I've said, just realising my potential in a way that I'm doing positive things to kind of keep myself in a place where everything is perfect for me. So, like you said about the gym we've got going at the moment is just, you know, it's anything I could ever want. Like, all the kit and stuff there, but more importantly than the kit, you know, the people we've got there, and, you know, my training partners. You know, the majority of my training crew on the British team, and are very, very, very good lifters. So, you know, you can't help but when you're in an environment like that to just excel. Do you know what I mean? Like when all you're surrounded with is just people who do well, like you're gonna do well as well, which is why
and
I
they
think
want a lot from you.
Yeah,
you know?
of course. Like I think because they want a lot from themselves as well. It's almost like you look out for yourself as much as you do the next guy. So, like they're not gonna let you skip out on stuff, and like if you do, you'll probably feel quite guilty about it, which is, you know, something that is quite unique to kind of the place we train. It's almost like, although it's powerlifting, which is obviously a solo sport, when you're on the platform, like there is definitely a feeling of like team about it. 100%. Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah.
You know, I think we kind of covered a lot of these different things, and I think you have a really unique aspect and mindset, and basically everything that you do in training is very targeted, and your whole life is almost right now designed to kind of put yourself in a really good position.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and you're like this, where are you from exactly in the UK?
Yorkshire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty small town, right?
Oh, Harrogate. Yeah, Harrogate's a tiny town. I think it's. I'm not sure. Probably about. I mean, it's probably about 200,000 people that live there, but it's voted the nicest place to live in the UK. But yeah, it's like not. It's a very wealthy place. Obviously, I know there's mixed kind of like wealth in certain areas, like, and it's the same in Harrogate. But generally as an area, it's quite wealthy. But not much goes on. Like not many people do stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's kind
especially
of
powerlifting's like.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
No, especially when you look at kind of the gyms in Harrogate. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I've trained there, kind of my entire. Well, since I started training, I've trained in Harrogate until I moved to a gym that was a bit further away from where I live. But you know, powerlifting friendly is like they're not, and it don't get me wrong. It's somewhere where you could definitely train. You could definitely train if you were just kind of into training, or if you were like powerlifting, but you weren't powerlifting to kind of maybe like the standard that I'm at. Because like I don't want to go into like a gym and have to lift on like on normal bars with like normal plastic plates that are that thick when you're squatting like be right out to the ends and
so
wobbling.
You have a lot of you have a lot of whip on your squat normally. Did you feel like that affected anything at the competition?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know kind of what the reason was behind it. Maybe it was nerves. Although you can prepare as much as you like, I think, and the outcome was always that, you know, I was going to win it. Like, you still get nervous. It's still a competition. Like, and it genuinely meant so much to me that I don't know whether that was the contributing factor to the bar whip. It seemed like it actually settled down the heavier it went.
Yeah.
Like, it was kind of like, my first squat was the worst. It was kind of like I picked it out of the rack and it just started going like straight away. People have been saying, you know, oh, it's the stage, it's this, but, you know, I put it down to maybe just nerves and just,
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny you say like, you like projected totals were there, and projected totals would put you in the win relatively easily, and that's no negative to the other competitors. But even when you're in the venue, that doesn't matter. Like the projection it requires execution in every way. You have to make sure that you're hitting depth, that the judges approve of your lifting. You know, anything can happen that you wouldn't think about normally in the gym because nobody's really judging you. Everyone's just hyping you up. Well, you got 3 people. It's judgment day on the platform, you know, and so in the actual environment in the back room, it's not like I got this. Like, you know, people might get that impression or something, but it's pretty nerve-wracking because you still have to execute. Yeah. You know?
Well, and I think as well, especially when you look at a world championship, like the standard of refereeing is, well, it's how a comp should be reffed. It's how every powerlifting comp should be reffed, you know. But I'll never, ever bash a judge for being too strict, kind of within reason, do you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, as long as it's consistent, it's fair. And, you know, they were doing a good job at this comp of kind of just being like, just strict but fair.
Yeah, very consistent judging.
So you know what you need to do at the end of the day. Like, it's not like you're coming into the comp with no idea like what they've got to expect. So But yeah, there's definitely another kind of element when you're on comp day of like, I've got to get this right, because I know it sounds cliche, but you've only got one shot, one opportunity kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like if you who's to say that, you know, if I missed that 380 squat that I'd have been sat here saying I'm a world champion now?
Yeah. Exactly.
Like I might not have been.
Yeah, and Joe Payne have really pushed us with that. Was it 425.5 squat? Like going into deadlifts, anything could have happened.
He's like 45 kilos ahead.
Yeah, he's 40. Like imagine going into that. Like, yeah, I think I'm gonna win, and then oh wait, now I have to execute everything flawlessly. Your knees can't slightly unlock on any of the deadlifts. Like there's no room for error when perfection is kind of required of you.
No.
You know, so I just.
And I think that's a big part, I think, of competing at kind of that world level. And I think it's not something that maybe people can kind of appreciate or understand when they're maybe just like lifting in the gym. Yeah. It's the fact that, you know, especially when you go to a world's comp, like you're not lifting at home, you're not lifting on your normal ground, your normal food, and you've done no travel, you've just driven to wherever the comp is. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just a whole different animal in itself. Like there's just so much more to think about. So I think if someone puts up a total on the world stage that makes you think like, wow, then what they can do back at home is probably do you know what I mean? It's probably even better. Which is why I look forward to doing, you know, comps on home turf, because it's just so much easier. Yeah. Like, and I think that it'll be a good place to kind of, like, there's not as much pressure, you know, your food's normal, you just travel down, like, it's nice and easy, there's no jet lag, there's no difference in kind of environment or anything else, you know, maybe the judging's a bit more relaxed, stuff like that, the comp run's a bit slower. But no, it's definitely good to test yourself at a world championship, because if you can do it there, you can do it anywhere. So,
yeah. Well, that kind of wraps up what we wanted to talk about. I hope you guys kind of found this enjoyable and helpful, because, you know, it's not every day you get to have a detailed conversation about training with the world champion. So that's why I wanted to interview you, and I hope you guys enjoyed this, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
Reactive Training Systems.